Hello, everyone. Welcome to Ongoing Mastery, Presenting and Speaking, the podcast, and the rolling discussion. Hi, Kelly. How are you?
I'm all right this morning. How are you, Kirsten?
I'm hanging in. I'm hanging in. So, today we're going to talk about being the 3.0 version of yourself. Kelly, what the hell does that mean?
Well, especially in terms of software releases, versions are numbered. Major versions go up in the first integer, and minor revisions go up after the decimal. So 1.0 is the first version. Small bug fixes, 1.1, 1.2, sometimes jump to 1.5, but the next major release is 2.0. And it's a way to track which version you're in more easily instead of having complicated names. And if you're like me, final draft, final draft, really the final draft, damn it, final draft.
Yeah, this
Yep.
is the final of the final draft. If they give me any more changes, I'm going to kill them.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, so what's happening internally, everybody, is that at Rourke Training, my amazing and wonderful team, Kelly and Danny and like the whole crew, has been being really patient about the fact that I am on a Kirsten 3.0 journey and that I didn't really realize how completely authentic and present and totally honest about who I am and what I am and what I do, I needed to be in my work because I've always been that. But I've also tried to hide a lot of parts of me because I consider a lot of parts of me to be a strong cup of coffee for a lot of people. And my amazing and wonderful mentor and sales coach, Natalie Bullen, and the group of sales sirens that I'm part of, essentially said, knock that shit off. We are done with
Yes.
you hiding.
Yep.
The people who want to work with you are going to want to work with you, and the other people are not your ideal client. So just let them move on. And it took forever. And when I came back to the team, I was like, oh my God, I've had this epiphany. And they all went, we've been trying to say this for a year. Well, we're glad you listened to somebody. So that's what this
We did
is,
not say that.
well, you
We
did
did
not
not
say
say that
that.
last part.
You did not say that last part. I'm not sure whether or not Danny said that last part. I think she might have. Well, hey, it's okay. It's 100% true. 100% true. It's like, dear God. So how does that relate to presenting and speaking? Well, you are on whatever the iteration of yourself is, and that iteration is based on previous versions of you. And what is
Yep.
not obvious is that everything that you're doing now is fed from the wellspring of everything that came before. So,
Hmm.
um, Kelly, I know what my different tiers are for my versions. What are your versions? What are the different stages of Kelly that we've had so far?
So I'm on version 3.0, but they're not linear. So I guess my longest one, so version 1.0, but also kind of ongoing, is being in academics as a student, as a master's student, as a doctoral student, as a faculty member. I've done that longer than I've done anything else, and it fundamentally shapes how I think about the world, how I look at everything around me, how I interact with people. I need to be reminded to turn off teacher mode, sometimes in the way I'm saying things and sometimes in the projection of things. My husband will remind me that he is sitting right across from me, that I don't need to project. Um, so I do a lot of that just so ingrained now. And then version 2.0 was in my earlier post undergraduate, before I went to master's program days. I worked at a couple of different nonprofits, and they're close to academe in sort of the
Yep.
way that they are mission driven and so on. But I was an administrative assistant, which taught me a lot about organization and teamwork and voice and how to read a room differently than when I was at the front of it, and how to be a supportive team member, but also how to let other people do their jobs and not step in because I know how. So that
That's
was an
hard.
interesting experience for someone. Yeah, when
Yeah.
I was in my early 20s, that was a fantastic time to learn those kinds of lessons. And I actually worked again as a higher level admin assistant while I was doing my doctoral work at a research lab, but a social studies research lab at MIT. And both of the women who ran it had PhDs. And they're interviewing me and they're looking at my resume and they're like, "Why do you want this job? You're ridiculously overqualified." I said, "I would be the best damn secretary you've ever had. I need a job that I can work 9 to 5. And at 5:01, I walk out the door and go over to the library and I keep working on my dissertation." And they went, "You're hired." So and that was
Bravo.
on work and family balance. And so that
Hmm.
was also a really great learning experience for its content, but also how to work in a research lab in academia. And so
Yep.
here I am at version 3.0, producer, writer, and herder of cats here at Rourke Training, and thinking about myself in an academe parallel, but not necessarily in academe track.
Yep. And the herder of cats is pretty much the cat named Kirsten.
Yeah.
Pretty much, yes. So that's fantastic, and yeah, everything that you've done and everything that you've been, feeds into how you see the world and what you do and how you communicate now.
Yeah.
In my case, I started out in occupational therapy and was working at Easter Seals. And so in occupational therapy, the rehab department, I'd be working with speech therapists and physical therapists, and my job would be activities of daily living. So helping patients be able to eat after they've had a stroke, or helping kids who are profoundly sensory challenged to be able to teach their systems that they're not in danger so that they can be in a classroom setting, things like that. And our computer guy bailed, and
Hmm.
Easter Seals is nonprofit. So
Yep.
I got introduced to the technology side of things because I got walked into that room and was told, all of this is yours. Good luck. And as I was saying on a webinar earlier this week, I approach technology different than some of my peers because my first experience of getting people onto tech was getting patients with profound disabilities to use assistive technology to access the computer. So I was coming
Yeah.
to the computer through assistive tech, puff and sip switches, elbow switches, other stuff. So I don't see
Hmm.
tech necessarily the way some other people do. And so my focus is always, well, who can access this? How? What does it look like?
Yep.
Why are we assuming? And OT has a lot of task analysis components to it. You have to do a lot of breaking things down to their core, which
Yeah.
works really well in tech. So I ended up being a technical trainer and getting boot camped in how to be a tech trainer by my first professional tech job, and learning how to do that and doing it in front of other people and learning things not to do. Like,
Hmm.
I used to be taught that you would lie to your students and pretend you knew stuff when you didn't. And you'd run back to the break room and figure it out and come back and remember it. And no, you do not do that shit. No, no, bad,
No.
wrong.
Yikes.
Yeah, that was one of the things that was part of the gig. So when I moved to Massachusetts and started freelancing, I took that out of my repertoire. And the number of people that were surprised that I would say, I don't know, or no, I can't do that, was like, but you're a freelancer. Everybody says they can do it and they figure it out. I'm like, yeah, if I had enough prep time, I would do that, but I'd also be upfront about it. And I'm not
Yeah.
qualified for X for this reason. And turning stuff down gets you a lot of respect, especially when people are used to being snowed. So I'm on
Exactly. Yeah.
version 3.2, of my iteration right now because I'm now, as an entrepreneur and coach and a CEO, I came to the 3.0 realization a couple months ago or a month, I don't even know. And since then have had more, oh wow, I'm looking at the world through X lens realizations. So I'm now doing point upgrades to my version of myself. Um, Kelly and I were talking that recently it was made very clear to me that I approach explaining things as an instructor and not as a
Mm,
coach.
yeah.
So, Kelly, why is that a problem? Why not just approach everything as an instructor, especially when you're coaching?
Well, as I learned from you this week, one of the problems is that when you treat people as students, there's something of a learned helplessness that goes with it. They keep looking to you for the answer. They keep expecting and therefore waiting for the next step or whatever. And it's a different mindset than being a client of a coach.
Yeah. And it was a really, oh, it was quite the epiphany, um, because the person, my coach's coach, so my coach is
Yeah.
amazing, and her coach is, oh my lord, the woman walks in very powerful rooms and makes tons of money just by basically exuding her excellence. And she came to our group and gave us the clarity that we needed and said, so y'all are turning your clients into non-payers because you're not giving them the time and space to grow and do the things they need to do to achieve the goals you want. You system dump. She actually said you waterboard them in with information. And at first I was like,
Jeez.
I don't do that. And the more she talked, the more I'm like, oh, I do that because I'm giving them all the information. Only that's not how people learn and grow. There is
Yeah.
a cognitive load issue. So, Kelly, how would you describe cognitive load to somebody who's never heard that term before? What is that? What are we talking about?
So I would say cognitive load is how much concentrated attention you need to spend on learning the thing you're learning without distractions from your phone or necessarily keeping an eye minute by minute on the clock because you've got to get out of there. How much just dedicated time you need to carve out. And if someone has a short amount of time, you can't give them, say they have 20 minutes, you can't give them 20 minutes worth of content. They won't be able to absorb it. They need a little bit of time to look out the window, to go, oh, that reminds me of this other thing I already know, to kind of let it sink in. It's almost like, if this metaphor works for you, it's almost like when you water a plant, a house plant that's really, really dry, right? If you dump all of the water on there, it's going to overspill the top of the container because the dirt can't take it all in. It's got to soften up and then it can absorb more of the water. So if you feed that plant slowly, you'll be able to water it appropriately. But if you just dump the whole amount of water at once, most of that's going to be wasted.
Yeah. And I realized this week that uh in a lot of the ways I've been explaining what we do, I've been turning things into Thailand, just fire hose of information. Um, yeah, it's a lot
Yeah.
like painting a room. If you're going to prime something,
Mm-hmm.
you want to patch the walls and sand and then prime and let that dry and then do the first coat and
Right.
let that dry. And that's actually how humans learn too. So if your cognitive load is, I can take X amount of information and then I need to process it, or I need to walk away, or I need to think it through, that's different for
Mm-hmm.
each person.
Yep.
And to not build that in is actually a disservice. And I realized that I got this wonderful coaching, and it's like, oh, wow. Cause I've been feeling like if I don't give everybody everything, I'm cheating them. But that's not
Yeah.
actually it. So
And if you
you're,
think about it,
yeah. Go
I
ahead.
was just gonna say, if you think about it, there aren't a lot of contexts outside of higher education where people sit for long periods of time with no breaks, with no ability to just, ask a question or whatever and just absorb information. Graduate seminars are 3 hours long, and it takes practice to be able to do that. Not even in business meetings. So many people are on their phones or they're pulling up the slides for their part of the agenda, which comes up in 10 minutes or whatever. They're
Yeah.
not paying 1 hour of full concentration. And so expecting clients to be able to absorb 1 hour of full concentration is not serving them as well as we might.
Yeah. And doing technical training, there was always this whole, oh, get them off their phone. Well, this was before phones were such a thing because I'm a little older.
Yeah.
This was, have them not go on solitaire on the computer. Um,
Hmm.
and what I always found was is that if they're doing that, they're generally doing that for a reason, and a lot of that reason is they're bored. So if they're just like if you're just of information, then yeah, people are going to do that. So your job, it needs to be more, you need to be more engaging, you need to be more energetic, you need to be more, dynamic. I would do especially really tough classes, like database development basics. I would do a lot of, okay, we're going to grab legal pads and I'm going to put you in small groups and we're going to talk about why you want to do X and what the fields are that we want to create to capture data. And they're like,
Hmm.
this is an access class. I'm like, yes, it is, but we're not opening the software for the first hour. And
Yeah.
people were like, what? Because they were expecting to go in and be staring at an interface. And I'm like, why? You don't even know what you're doing yet. You don't know why
Hmm.
you're doing it. So, how are you going to give
Yeah.
me your full attention when that's taking up time in your head? One of the
Right.
things about like people asking questions, we live for, at Rourke Training, we live for our sticky notes.
Yeah.
We happen to use physical sticky notes. Digital sticky notes are grand too, but being able to take something out of your head and put it on a piece of paper and have it no longer be owning you so that you can attend is critical.
Yeah.
And when I'm doing webinars with people, I will use my sticky notes. If they ask something I can't deal with at the moment, I will put it on a sticky note and I will show it to them so they then know I haven't blown them off, I haven't forgotten them, but then they can give
Hmm.
me their attention because they don't have to be holding the question in their mind. And if you say, oh, write it down, people don't do that. Like 25% of people do that. Oh, thank you, Angel. Oh, I
Pause.
that's the microphone. Okay, so we're going to take this out of the recording. Okay, so we're going to cut some of that out of the recording, but for everybody, a French bulldog was walking by my house, and my 38
Oh no.
pound dog was barking at a Frenchie. You should be ashamed of yourself, barking at a Frenchie. What's wrong with you? Okay. And we're
Oh,
back.
that dog exists.
My God, there's a dog existing on my street. Woof, I will not have it. And Angel is now wagging in she's basically doing the I'm here, but so yes, we have the good treats today. Okay. And so if you were going to give one piece of advice to our listeners, what would that one piece of advice be about the 3.0 version of yourself?
That growing and developing and having a new direction, a new version, a new release of what it is that your life is about is terrific. It's an organic accretion process of building out and out and out, that it is not abandoning who you used to be or saying that that was somehow wrong or bad, that it's a perfectly natural way to grow and develop and to embrace it and be excited about what new direction that might be.
Yeah, I was having this conversation this morning. Kelly and I used to have the same trainer, Heidi, and she's wonderful. She says hi, by the way. And she and I were
Hi.
talking about how, you know, we're going through different generational changes when it comes to
Mhm.
employment. And the era of I'm with a company for 40 years, that was going away when I was
Yeah.
coming up. That's
Yeah.
definitely not in place now. And just the shift in how people are looking at their careers, but there's still the cultural sense of, oh, I'm having to relearn a skill set or I'm having to move to a new area. I've somehow, it's a failure because I'm no
Mm.
I'm losing all of what I did before. Everything you did before feeds what you're doing now. Everything you've learned in the past helps inform how you learn in the present.
Yeah.
So you're never lost. It's all ongoing mastery, all of it. And you're never finished. So I guess that would be my tip is, we're all a work in progress. You're never done.
Yep.
You're never done. When plants stop
I
growing,
like
they die, right? So,
I like the academic version in higher ed when you have to put together what it is you've done, where you've worked, any awards you've won. It's not called a resume, it's called a CV, curricula vitae, which means basically life in letters, right? And the idea that this document captures your life as opposed to just being this kind of top line summary. I
yep.
just find it charming, and I kind of love that, and kind of thinking of CV development and version 3.0 for right now.
Awesome. So, hopefully, everybody watching and listening, share with us what your version is. What's your point release right now? Where are you? What number are you on? And what did you learn from your previous self that is informing your current self? Okay.
Yeah.
And we will see y'all next week. Have a good one.
Cheers.